So please tell us, I said you're with Ripple, but what do you do at Ripple, and how did you come to join Ripple?
Yeah, so I'm the sales director at Ripple. So Ripple is, and I think as you alluded to in this introduction, very different. We are solving a real-world use case. We're applying new technologies for a real-world use case. And I came to join Ripple because, I think when you look to join any company, you want to make a dent on the universe. And the repercussions of what we're doing are very far-reaching and big for consumers and people like me and you. So I think it was a no-brainer, really. Yeah.
It is exciting times. I mean, so many things are happening in the technology, and we talk a lot about disruption, but also a lot about collaboration. So the business model of Ripple really is all about collaborating with the different players in the industry. How do you think Ripple fits into the larger picture of, we talked a lot about blockchain as well as cryptocurrencies, and what I always get, confused about, people always, associate blockchain only with cryptocurrencies, but there's so much more.
Yeah, so I think it's a good question. So Ripple as a company, we're a software company, right? So our mission is very simple. We want to reduce the friction from cross-border payments. And our long-term vision is to enable what we call the Internet of Value. Very straightforward. That means that we want the world to exchange value as easily as we can exchange information today. And it's a non-trivial thing, right? Because if you think about consumers are changing, and the expectations of consumers are changing, and they're changing in line with the innovations that we're seeing on the internet. And it's interesting to think that payments, as we know them today, were not designed to be made over the internet. So what that means is that banks, financial institutions, corporate customers cannot provide the experience that consumers of today and of tomorrow are looking for. So that's where we come in. We're trying to enable a new experience, a new service to banks, and we want banks to provide this to their customers. And we see a world where you can send payments to anyone in the world, friends, families, and this might be corporates as well, in seconds rather than days. And that's really what we're striving towards.
And there's a lot of confusion in my experience with, Ripple as a company and providing these services, and XRP, the symbol for the Ripple coin that's on the market, known as a cryptocurrency, and whether companies are actually using XRP, and now we heard a lot about XCurrent, XRapid. Maybe you can help us with this confusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So XRP is a digital asset. Ripple is the software company. So I work for Ripple, the software company, and we're creating utility for the asset XRP. And I think if you think about blockchain, and we had some speakers earlier talking about blockchain, many people think that blockchain is this kind of panacea for all the world's problems, and it quite frankly isn't. And where Ripple is different is we're applying blockchain and distributed ledger technologies for a very real world example, which is cross-border payments. And I think my advice to any company would be, and I think where we've seen our relative success over the years from when we started, we still have a long way to go from when we started, is that we have been laser focused on one use case, and that's cross-border payments and removing the friction. So I think if you think about what we're doing, to make any payment in the world, any bank or payment service provider, they need to be obviously connected to an end beneficiary bank, and they need to have liquidity with the end beneficiary bank. So we're solving that connectivity problem with solutions like XVIA and XCurrent, which we have, by the way, over 100 customers now using that technology, and our network is growing, signing a customer about one a week now. And XRP we see is a very, very specific use case. So unlike, we don't envisage a world where XRP will be used to buy coffee here in Poland. We envisage a world where XRP will be used just for cross-border payments as a bridging asset, which reduces friction, has an implication for banks, and has an implication for consumers as well. So,
well, you do work a lot with banks. Can you give us some names, some real examples of projects that you're doing?
Yeah, and you talked at the beginning about Bitcoin and the genesis of Bitcoin, and if you think about the kind of philosophy behind that, it was very much this kind of libertarian thinking, disintermediate banks, some sides of that kind of bring down the banks. Ripple have taken a very different approach, and we have done from day one. So our approach is to partner with banks, to work with banks. We're working with one of our largest customers is Santander. In fact, we do work with Santander here in Poland as well, which is our first customer in Poland. We work with people like SEB in Sweden. We have banks now all across the world. Emerging markets has been incredibly important for us as well. So we have Itaú, the biggest bank in Brazil. We have about a dozen banks in the Middle East, banks in South Asia, across India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bangladesh, and in the Far East as well. If you think about payments, most payments now and in the future will go from west to east. So emerging markets has been absolutely huge for us. Yeah, they're getting utility out of the software. Their customers are using it today in a production environment. So I think that's another point I'll make. We're not doing POCs. We're not doing science experiments. This is real production-grade technology, which we're working with for a number of banks.
Wow, exciting development. It all happened in such a short amount of time. Now, you mentioned frictionless. That was like the general motivation of why you're doing it. Are all of your products actually using digital assets?
So the only product which leverages digital asset is a product called xRapid. So we have a suite of solutions, 3 solutions, xCurrent, xVia, and xRapid. But broadly speaking, it's around solving connectivity, so creating this network. If you think about the world's payment network, it's opaque, it's not transparent, it's inefficient, it takes time, and it's expensive for banks, right? So banks today deal with exceptions, issues, investigations on a regular basis, which rises their operational costs, means they have to give a very poor user experience to their customers. What we're trying to do is solve that connectivity problem and build this new real-time global network. And xRapid is around solving the liquidity problem. So a very, very simple example. Let's take an emerging market use case. If I'm a bank in Nigeria, let's say, and I wanted to send a payment to Mexico, today there's 2 ways I can do that. I would have a direct correspondent relationship with the bank in Mexico, which is, depending on the volume, is expensive and may not make economic sense. Or typically, I would go through a correspondent. What we're trying to do is change the correspondent banking model by using a digital asset. First time this has ever been done in 400 years, by the way, which is when correspondent banking has been around. And we're now saying to banks in places like Nigeria and across the world, enter into a transaction where you're selling the local currency, you're buying XRP, that's moving across the ledger in seconds, so exposure is very limited, and then you're settling in the end currency. What that means from a very basic level is that you never have to hold the destination currency, which frees up capital for banks that have capital locked around the world, and more importantly, gives access to banks in emerging markets where they don't have access or they're beholden to large correspondent banking networks.
So you talked about creating this internet of value. Can you talk about what's the vision for Ripple and what's the vision for this internet of value? Where's this going?
Yeah, so we think the internet of value is coming, and we want Ripple to be an instrumental part of that. If you think about the internet of value, what it actually means, today we can share data very easily across the world. We can have email exchanges, we can have video conversations. Arguably, we can also exchange goods very efficiently through shipping containers and infrastructure, which is cross-border. But value is still a place and a friction point in the world, and we see that as the kind of missing component of a true internet of value, which essentially lubricates global commerce and allows consumers to send money instantly as well. I think one of the things I would mention just quickly on this is that if you think about today's payment infrastructure, not exactly great for high volume, low value payments. And if you think about the way the payments are going to be in the future, you already have applications in the US like Venmo, where people will buy a coffee and say, "I'll Venmo you." We see that going cross borders. So as people,
WeChat.
Exactly, and we're seeing huge innovations in China, albeit in a domestic use case. We think as people's social networks grow, as people kind of work across the world and their family networks grow, we see that kind of same experience as happening in the future. So, hey, I'll send you $2-3 instantly, 2 clicks, 30 seconds, and you receive it, which you can't do today fundamentally.
So digital assets help create the internet of value, and you talked about this missing component, a missing link. How do you see them, what actually makes them the missing link? What makes them the key part of this puzzle that we're all looking for?
Yeah, so specifically, we think the digital assets can solve that liquidity problem. So you solve that problem, you enable the exchange of value more efficiently. So we see that as an important part, and I think that's what we've been totally focused on. Is creating utility for XRP, which is a separate entity. And we are the kind of steward, let's say, as a company, of XRP, and we want to enable a healthy ecosystem that creates value for this asset. I will say this as well, many kind of bankers in the room, and what I do on a day-to-day basis is speak to banks all over the world. And the first thing I do when I go into a room and talk about digital assets, I'm met with crossed arms, frowns, kind of
I can imagine.
responses of, hey, this is never going to happen. In some ways, I actually agree with them. I actually think banks will not be the first to adopt this kind of technology. I think it's probably the more nimble payment service providers who have already kind of, taking market share from banks in terms of payments. But we think that eventually, if it's regulated and we take a very, very, collaborative approach to working with regulators, if it's regulated, if it's safe, if it's secure, and if it's used for a specific use case, which at the end of the day benefits the bank's customers, we think it will come. It's just a matter of time, and I do wholeheartedly believe that. And I think it's an opportunity for banks. It's not something banks should be afraid of. It's something the banks should embrace.
So you're optimistic. That's good to hear.
I'm always the optimist, yeah, certainly.
So we just, in our startup block, we had a very interesting idea of social impact investing, using the blockchain for that and tracking your investments. Does it actually have an impact? Where do you see the blockchain as being used to actually make a difference in the world?
Yeah, so I think the blockchain or blockchain technologies in general can be applied to many different use cases, real-world applications. While we're very focused on payments, cross-border payments, we're also a very socially responsible company. We invest in charities. We've made public charitable donations, through our company as well. But we think in the future there'll be lots of applications and use cases for this technology as well.
So you said you're optimistic. Where do you see this going? Where do you see Ripple and the whole ecosystem in, I don't know, say 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, so we can only do this with our partners. So we're very, very focused on delivering value for our customers. We have over 100 customers today, but we've got a number of live projects getting customers live, and our project team are very focused on working with our customers. We hopefully think that trend will continue. We see this as a kind of customer adoption metric. That's one of our main focus areas. We're now at 150. We think that there'll be a point in time, and there's a lot of debate internally what the magic number will be, but there'll be a point in time where we reach a number and we'll start seeing the benefit of the network effect. So the network kind of taking form, customers getting value from their system through more and more customers on the network, right? So I think that's one of the big benefits, is that customers only have to do a heavy lift once, have to implement the software once, and the value of that software grows and grows as more and more people join the network. So I think hopefully me and my team are just very focused on getting more customers, more partners that are behind and see our vision as well, that see in the value of our vision and believe in our vision, and we're working with those types of customers at the moment.
And like you said, collaboration is an integral part of your business model as a company, right? Getting the different players together and really collaborating on all these challenges. And it seems you have a great solution, and it seems that you have great momentum going. Lots to talk about Ripple, lots to talk about different solutions out there. So thank you very much for being here, Russ. And I invite everyone to actually come find him, talk to him. He's going to be here. It's all about networking. It's all about, exchanging experience and opinions. And I don't know, you looking for new partners? I'm sure
Always.
you are. Always. All right. Thank you for being here.